Nowadays, it seems like everyone is in the top 1%. And to be honest, as a high school student, currently a sophomore, it's hard to kind of not put yourself in the trap of comparing yourself to everyone else. And even though I know I shouldn't, it's easier said than done to convince yourself of the fact that you are okay with being like where you are right now and that everything you see, so much of it is social media and so much of it is just exaggerated to the point where you don't really know if it's real or if it's fake, any of that. And to be honest, this has nothing to do with pressure from my parents at all. Growing up, obviously, in a Chinese household, grades were definitely something that were really emphasized. However, I think over the years, like going through middle school to high school, like where I am now as a sophomore, I think my parents kind of just understand that I know how I'm going to be managing my time, and they kind of trust me to be doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing, and that includes school and schoolwork, managing, getting good grades, all that stuff. But I think it's just more so of how society is today. It's like so much of it is all like shown on social media, all of the good things and all of like the normal sort of norms, and like maybe this is how life should be to its realest and rawest like potentials are just being neglected. And it's this kind of perspective where it's like if you're not in the top 1%, then you're behind, then you're not as good as them. But the reality is, so much of it is being amplified, and it's just this super small circle that's actually the real and the authentic people that have gone the extra miles to get there. And I guess for me, it's that I know I'm capable of doing things. However, it's just the rewards or like the things that will prove what I'm saying. It's just not really near my sight, or I haven't been able to grasp onto those things. And I think that's the hardest part, where you realize that where you are now and where you want to be, like you're somewhere in the middle of that, and you're sort of just navigating that middle kind of by yourself. You don't really have a blueprint as to how you're going to get to where you want to be, but it's kind of just this like you navigating by yourself, kind of treading in the waters a little bit and just playing around with stuff. And by doing so, you kind of feel lost because you're constantly just comparing yourself to all the other people out there that have made it, that have had the rewards to prove like what they truly were able to achieve. But then after a lot of reflection, I started to realize something. And what I realized was that feeling behind doesn't actually mean you are. It's just more of this mindset that keeps you sort of in the trap, in the loop. And all it really means is that your ambition is ahead of where you are. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it shows that if you have that ambition, that's the first step already, identifying what it is that you want to go for and aim towards that direction. And so we often compare the things that are visible to us, all those outcomes, the rewards, the titles, the recognitions, and all the things that are the external that we see as validation to our success. But what we never compare is the internal systems that actually get us there, the mindsets, the habits, the behaviors, the everyday actions, and just how you think in general, how you think about situations, about problems, about everyday life, the discipline, the willpower, the self control, the grit, all of that. That's never getting considered because those are things that I guess are not something that receives external validation. And I think in today's society, that sort of validation where people can see is something that gets so emphasized. But what actually gets you there is through those very internal systems. and how you approach your problems and how and the critical thinking that's involved in kind of choosing a different path from where most people are, because that's what's separating you from what everyone else is doing. And so what I'm telling myself now is not that I'm behind or not that I'm unworthy just because I haven't achieved all of these things that I see on social media, but more so it's that I'm just starting. And because of that, I'm actually early because I'm on this road and I'm starting and I haven't actually gotten to where I am, but that's just one more reason to keep me pushing forward. And the truth is that the most hardest and longest phase of building your own identity and building towards that success is often the phase that no one sees. That is something that just gets neglected when you truly reach that success. It's all the thinking, the process of building, all of those days where you are just stuck at home working and no one is there to see you undergoing all those hours. But the moment you reach the top and you get to success, it's that it's really just the tip of the iceberg that people see. All of those hours that you spend actually working quietly and just building onto who you are and where you want to be, that's not being seen. And because that is the longest part and the most overlooked, that's also just why there's so few people who are actually there onto the top. And so if you're also someone who is feeling behind or just constantly like comparing yourself to the people who are just a lot better than you, then just know that chances are you're not behind and that you're actually early and you're just basically in the phase where nothing has compounded yet into something greater. But if you just visualize yourself as being under the iceberg, but slowly moving up towards the surface of the water, then you'll know that you're on the right path. And it's just that that small 1% are the people who have reached to the tip of the iceberg. And if you just keep doing what you know is going to benefit you in the long run, then that is one reason to know that you're not behind in whatever you're doing. But just trust the process, and instead of thinking everyone else is ahead of me, think that I am on my own path and I don't have to be on the same path as everyone else. Everyone's timing is different. When and how you achieve things are all different as well. And so don't compare yourself to all the other people that you see, because that will just ruin your own mindset of who you are. And that negativity is not something that you want to add on into your life. And so if you just trust yourself and the process, the path, that the journey that you're on, then eventually you'll realize that you're actually just early in the process. You were never behind in the first place. And as long as you keep building towards who you want to be, all those small things will compound into something greater one day.